What's going on, everyone? Dave from Fan Futsal here, and welcome to our rapid match recap for the Stuttgart versus Leverkusen Bundesliga match. Friday, December 8th, just finished 0-2, Leverkusen with the road victory there. So, first off, got on my Santa hat inspired by the Stuttgart fans who are rocking them all over the stands. So, had to throw mine on for recording this video. Before the match, I know that Leverkusen has been on an unbeaten run since September, and so they've been flying high. I know there were a lot of draws included within that, so I didn't know if they were just going to shoot for a draw in this match or if they were going to go for a victory. And so before the match, I was on the lookout for that. Stuttgart has been flirting with mid-table, more flirting with the relegation zone down below, lower half of the table, but they haven't lost a match at home all of 2017 until today. So before the match, those were some of the things running through my head from a formation perspective. I'm watching in the US, so I was watching on Fox Sports. They listed the formation as a 4-2-3-1 for Stuttgart. In actuality, it was more of a 3-4-2-1. And then Leverkusen was a 3-4-3. And so when you have three center back formation, what I'm always looking for is how those three center backs deal with the opposing striker, and more specifically how the opposing striker involves himself and gets involved in the game. Because when you have three center backs marking one striker, one of two things can happen. The striker can use the fact that there's three center backs and sort of play them off each other and sort of find space that way, or the three center backs can completely take the center striker out of the match, which is what ended up happening for Stuttgart, whereas Leverkusen, Volland was still fairly involved throughout the match. But again, these are just my pre-match thoughts. Fox Sports, again, I said I'm watching in the US. That promo for the Bundesliga was a little bit rough. I know these guys, English is a second language, but there was no real excitement, and they looked like they did not want to be there. So Fox may want to reshoot those promo intros specifically for the Stuttgart players. They did not look like they were into recording that. Last thing I wanted to mention, Julian Brand. Every time I watch Leverkusen or read about them, everybody is really hyping up this player. And I know he's a young player, he's talented, and I don't want to come down too hard on him, but I've never seen anything really special from him. He's a solid player. I think he's going to be a good professional, but a lot of people hype him up as kind of the next big thing for Germany, and I've never seen it. So I was looking for this match to see if there's anything that really caught my eye, and truth be told, nothing really did, and I'll address it later, but I was looking for that before the match, and I was slightly disappointed that nothing really changed my mind about him. So the match kicked off. Stuttgart was definitely the more aggressive side, pressing as a team much higher. They were defending more narrow, so they were shifting more towards the side of the field where the ball was defensively. And if Leverkusen could have swung the ball side to side a little bit quicker, they could have exploited space. But that's what was going on. The atmosphere in the Stuttgart Stadium, the Mercedes-Benz Arena, was fantastic throughout. Those fans had some incredible chants. It sounded like an awesome atmosphere, and they did a great job. Even though the home team was losing for most of the match, they were fantastic. Stuttgart already mentioned that they were the more aggressive and pressing side. They were definitely pressing as a team higher up the pitch. Leverkusen was pressing, but it was more just one man to the ball, and they weren't pressing as a team. It was a tactical decision to do this, but they weren't pressing as a team and were in the opposition half. So in Stuttgart's defensive half, Leverkusen wasn't pressing, but as soon as Stuttgart kind of got into Leverkusen's defensive half, they started to press more as a team, and that was a tactical choice that it looked like they made from that. I thought Volland up top for Leverkusen was impressive throughout. When you are a center striker, sometimes you can get isolated, and I thought he did a really, really good job. He's not a huge guy, but he did really well in hold-up play, maintaining possession. I thought his passing range was really good, and he was just really effective at sort of maintaining possession under pressure and being able to play that ball out of pressure. So I thought he was pretty effective throughout. Also, when Leverkusen is sitting back, especially after they got that early goal, and as a center striker, you're not involved offensively, it's really easy for the center striker to get sort of down and not keep himself involved in the match. And so it was good that Volland really did keep himself involved and engaged throughout the first half and throughout the match, even though Leverkusen was definitely the more defensive side. On the goal. So Leverkusen had a throw in. Bailey throws it into, I'm not even sure who, but he plays it back, and Pavard, the outside back for Stuttgart, who is by nature a center back, and maybe he's not used to playing outside back, but he rushes into Bailey unnecessarily. So he doesn't need to get that tight, and at the very least, he doesn't need to rush in at the angle he rushed in and how quickly he rushed in. Bailey does just a chest sombrero sort of flick over him and just gets by him way too easily, and then Bailey did very well to keep his composure and not just whip that ball as hard as he could. He tried to play a pass. I mean, in fairness, I think it was to Volland, and it got through, and ultimately Havertz made the run in there. But I think it all starts with Pavard sort of rushing in unnecessarily for Stuttgart, and then obviously the other defenders for Stuttgart being static, whereas Havertz was able to just jut right in front of them and get a goal. So there were a lot of players to blame on the Stuttgart goal, but Pavard really didn't cover himself in glory there. Donis was by far the most effective player for Stuttgart, attacking-wise, in both the first half and second half. He was their most dangerous player throughout the match. He had a couple good one-on-one take-ons, and the only really effective thing that Stuttgart was doing attacking-wise was hitting that long diagonal from Badstuber to Donis. They did it 2 or 3 times in the first half, and that was effective. But beyond that, they were just way too slow and way too static, both in their movement and their passing. It was very much side to side, no real incisive stuff in the first half. But Donis was by far the best player there. Leverkusen was able to press a high line, at least from their backs, because Stuttgart was being predictable, and they didn't have a ton of pace and weren't, at the very least, weren't playing balls over the top. So so Leverkusen was able to press and sort of condense the space up there without really any threat of being over the top. I thought Leverkusen controlled the first half, even though they didn't have as much possession. I thought Stuttgart, while they did have a ton of possession, nothing was really attacking-wise, and Leverkusen really was just in control throughout. Moving to the second half. So the second half started with sort of a weird thing from Leverkusen, and I don't know if this was an injury or what, but Retsos, the left center back, right? No, the left center back for Leverkusen was withdrawn. I don't know if he picked up an injury, if this was a tactical switch, but as a result of that, Baumgartlinger came on into center midfield. Now, one of the benders, I can't keep them straight, but one of the benders then dropped to right center back, which pushed Ta to left center back. Now, that's a lot of movement, especially for center backs and especially in their defense, where you want to try to limit that as much as possible. If it was an injury substitution, I can kind of understand it, but if it was a tactical substitution, I thought that was very strange, and Stuttgart was almost able to make them pay immediately, because Ta played exceptionally well in the first half, but to start in the second half, Stuttgart came right down his side of the field, which was the left side for Leverkusen, Stuttgart's right. Donis burned him easily, played a really dangerous cross in, and Stuttgart was unfortunate not to get on the end of it, and it all kind of started with that sort of tactical switch between the center backs, and I thought that was unnecessary if it was a tactical switch. If it was injury related, I can kind of understand it, but it definitely unsettled Leverkusen for the first part of it. Now, Stuttgart was definitely the more aggressive side in the second half. I thought that they did they were much more effective at being aggressive, both in their dribbling and one-on-one sort of attacking, as well as their passing in the first half. Again, I said it was very much side to side, very boring. And in the second half, they started off much better and more aggressively, whether it's taking players one-on-one or playing those line-breaking passes to get through. So I thought they were better at that in the second half, at least to start. For the first 10 to 15, 20 minutes they were, and then ultimately conceded, and that was kind of game over. But I thought at least to start the second half, they were good at that. Leno had 3 really good saves, and to be honest, I think he was the best player for Leverkusen on the day. And he just had 3 fantastic saves, because Stuttgart was peppering him a little bit, and he stood up well and made some decent saves. Then Leverkusen brought on Heinrichs, and they switched their formation from 3-4-3 to 4-3-3, pushed Bailey up the field a little bit more, and Lars Bender then shifted over to right back. And as a result of that, Ta ended up switching from left center back to right center back, where he was clearly more comfortable. And as soon as that happened, throughout the game, Ta was an absolute beast again. So clearly he was more comfortable playing as a right-sided center back, and he was a beast and played really well at that position. Then, as a result of that, so after Leverkusen switched to a 4 in the back, Stuttgart mirrored that and brought on a Kolo, and they switched to a 4 in the back, went with a 4-4-2, 4-3-3, 4-2-4, whatever. They just went more attacking, and, credit to them for at least trying it. Didn't ultimately amount to anything, but at least they tried something different and went after it. On Leverkusen's second goal, there's not much really to say beyond it was a great header from Bender, and he just straight up beat Pavard in the air. I mean, Acesarbar, I am sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. It's just unfortunate that he was the shortest player on the field and he was on the post. If that guy is 5'8", 5'10", I don't want to it's not his fault that he's short. It's just the reality of the situation. If he was a little bit taller, that's probably not a goal, but he was there. I forgot to mention this, but earlier in the match, the 70th minute, when Isai Sabar had that tackle on Brandt, I thought that should have been a red. It was very, very late. It was dangerous, and ultimately knocked Brandt out of the match. And I thought that he was fortunate to get away with just a yellow there. Speaking of Julian Brandt, again, I thought he was fairly wasteful in possession. You know, he makes good runs and he plays fairly well, but overall I think he's just too inconsistent for me, and he has bad giveaways. And so again, I think he's going to be a really good player. I just don't know if he can get to that top level that a lot of people keep telling me that he's destined for. So, you know, again, I don't want to come down on him because he's a young player and he's got a bright future, but just from the things I've seen, because he's been in the setup now at least a year or two. He's been a pro. I've been hearing about him for a while, and every time I've watched him, I just still haven't been overly impressed. And again, that was the situation today. Don't want to come down too hard of him because I've been wrong about youth players in the past, but I just would like to see more from him moving forward. Already mentioned, Donis was by far the most dangerous player for Stuttgart. Their center forward was isolated. You know, I mentioned before the match kicked off, I was going to be watching for that. Terode really didn't have much of anything throughout the match, and he was very isolated. Stuttgart needed to do more to get him involved and support him. And Leno, Ta, and the Benders, I thought, were the best players for Leverkusen. So that's it. Again, Leverkusen won 2-0, and that is our rapid match recap. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you agree with my analysis, if I missed anything, if you have different thoughts or whatnot. Please let us know in the comment section. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. See ya.